I like meditating early on because when you start, the room is half full, and then you open your eyes, and then all this magic happened, and all of a sudden there's all these people here. Where did they come from? Thanks for coming. Thanks for.
Do you want the AC back on?
No, I just wanted to cool down the room. Is anybody too hot wants the AC back on? No. You're in good. Thank you. So, Asian Classics Institute is a series of courses that takes about 5 years, which condenses the entirety of the Tibetan Buddhist monastic tradition, so what monks and nuns learn in a Gelugpa school, mostly, which is one of the 4 schools of Tibetan Buddhism, the one that the Dalai Lama, Holy Dalai Lama, belongs to. As you can tell from the meditation, hopefully, tonight's class is about your teacher. And I'm not your teacher. I'm some guy who was lucky enough to bump into some medicine for the mind and heart who has had his life altered thanks to that medicine, and in particular the giver of that medicine, the doctor, which is my holy teacher. So usually every week I sit here and I give you lists and I share heady stuff. And today I'm going to give you lists, I'm going to share heady stuff that the Gelugpa masters have shared for generations. But I hope to also give you the heart of what these lists are meant to do to your psyche, to the thing that makes you feel, to the heart of the matter, to the thing you just trust. At the end of the day, after you read the prescription on the medicine that says this will remove your headache, the reading of the words, you check whether it's got this drug or that drug, but really when you're taking it, you're like, here's hoping. That part, that trust, that leap, that we do it like that about so many things. When it comes to a spiritual life, when it comes to an internal life, when it comes to a life of meaning, is a very special subject, and maybe not something I tend to overemphasize in the classes. I realize that I've taught these classes for nearly 3 years now here, and my job is primarily to give you a download of the things that the Tibetan monks and nuns study, and every now and then give you a sense of it. So tonight's class for me is very special, and I hope to infect you with a little bit of that thing in all of us which connects to the essence of any realization, which is that heart connection. Yeah? And I hope beyond anything I want is if you could find your way, if you could find your way, what an incredible difference you could make to the rest of your world. Forget your own happiness. I'm talking about being in a world where everything becomes special, where people come to you and you see your friends as something more than friends, and where your family are no longer the normal people, the crazy people you grew up with, but some magical impulse towards a life of complete meaning. So I got ahead of myself. I usually review, so I'm going to review last class. Apologies. We're learning this thing called the Lam Lim, sorry. Lam Rim. Lip my stockings. Sorry. We watched that movie last night. Sorry. Lam Rim Duden, which is Holy Tsongkhapa's Song of My Spiritual Life. And Lama Tsongkhapa, he was the teacher of the first Dalai Lama between 1357 and 1419. It's the only, so Lam Rim means what? Steps on the path, right? Steps on what path? And what steps? Remember, it's got all these meanings, Lam Rims, right? What's a Lam?
Path.
Mm-hmm. Lam Rim can refer to a start of teaching, which dumps the entire context of the Buddha's works into one teaching from beginning to end. It means a text, a Lam Rim text. But also a Lam Rim is usually a section of the Lam Rim. So a death meditation within the steps to enlightenment is a Lam Rim by itself. Yeah? So we're not going to study exactly from him, we're going to read a commentary. And that commentary sheds light on all the words from Tsongkhapa. But here's the essence of the Lam Rim. What do you think the benefit, the ultimate benefit of studying or learning or teaching a Lam Rim is? Like really for those of you who have studied karma, think about the karma of studying, learning or teaching a Lam Rim. What kind of karma is that? What would you accumulate if you taught, listened, or studied a Lam Rim?
You'd create enough, this is a guess, you'd create enough merit to never not have this. Like you'd create an ever-existing blueprint for a path.
Why? Like, I'm not sure if you created the courses for it never to stop, but why would you create a blueprint for a path?
Because you're studying or teaching, it's a very high teaching, and you're studying and or teaching the blueprint itself. So by engaging in it, you're forming the mental formations to continue to.
I like your answer. Or you were just scratching your hair? Yeah, I can't see scratching my hair. I can't see for this thing. Mm-hmm. You're scratching your hair as well? Everyone's scratching their hair. Okay.
Maybe here's that we have a certain capacity to see things, and maybe it plants the seed, or for like the next evolution of that capacity to find the next step. Great.
The answer to the homework is here. By the way, I only ever teach you what should be in the homeworks for those of you doing homeworks and quizzes, right? So it incorporates all of the Buddhist teaching. It's like concentrated serum of a medicine, right? So if studying the Buddhist teaching is supposed to get you to nirvana and enlightenment, if this is true, right? If there was a being on the planet who then had an experience so fundamental and so imbued with, lack of a better word, freedom from the cycles of this life, was able to see the blueprint or the DNA beyond human life. If there was a creature on the planet, which we call the Buddha, and then there were others as well, who were able to see this possibility of freedom from suffering, to reach nirvana, to get enlightened, and all these things have meanings, right? If there was that, and then they spent 50 years teaching, oh, you could do this and you should do that, and because we're not having that experience, we're trying to catch it through words and concepts, right? 50 years teaching, right? And you don't have 50 years to be with a Buddha studying, and you're getting it through teacher-student relationships after 2,500 years. Then a Lam Rim is the serum or the concentrate of 50 years of teaching. They say of the both both ways to nirvana, right? What do they mean by the greater or the lesser vehicles?
Just the departure from suffering versus Buddhahood, like attaining nirvana, which is free from suffering.
Great, so it's nirvana or Buddhahood or Hinayana Mahayana path. Great, thank you. So the virtue, if you're able to conceive of a teaching as a Lamrim teaching, if you're able to conceive or even hear a Lamrim teaching, think about the significance of getting the entire code to a serum to freedom in a shot, rather than having to have 50 years of physiotherapy or something. You get a shot. Do you see what I mean? It's that kind of virtue. So you're implanted in your mind. If you have the capacity to experience a teaching as a Lamrim teaching, you get one. If you have the karma to perceive it, then you're having the karma to get the entire teaching. You see it? Yeah? Good. This is still something. For those of you who have not been on previous classes, enjoy. Yeah? So the review of the first 5 verses we covered at the beginning of the Lamrim, of this Lamrim. Oh, by the way, I want to say for Tsongkhapa, he wrote so many Lamrims, the medium, the small, the very large, etc. He's famous for this thing. He's like thousands of pages describing every step of the path, from discovering that you're even in a state of suffering. If you haven't had some major tragedy in life, or haven't seen your grandparents pass away, or your friends get cancer, or you losing a job, or being heartbroken by a boyfriend, or ran out of money, can't pay the rent, got kicked out. If you haven't had some major blur of this life, and you haven't seen other people have it, which I'd be surprised, at some point you might, and when you do, you begin a search for, well, what the hell am I supposed to do here, and how do I get free from that, right? So if you, from the very beginning of awakening, all the way to perceiving a complete universe of bliss, where you perceive every single object in its ultimate and relative form, and every being therein, and have an experience of bliss in that, being a Buddha, being enlightened, from beginning to end, is the Lamrim teaching, yeah, and all the teachings of the Buddha. So before Tsongkhapa starts writing, he says thank you and homage to all the lineage masters. But what's interesting about this, and he has written so many Lamrims, it's the only one, it's unprecedented at the time when he wrote it, of it being his own personal experience. Remember, it's Songs of My Spiritual Life. So it's his personal experience. It's like, I've given you a whole ton of information from previous masters all the way down to the Buddha on how to achieve enlightenment, how to get free from suffering, how all the different parts, how to reach a state of compassion, how to focus and concentrate, all the 3 baskets. Yeah, he's done many Lamrims like that, but never has anybody done a Lamrim like this one, nor this is the only Lamrim that he's done of this kind, where he sits there almost personally saying, if you want to reach some state of internal realizations of this, that results from these paths, then here is my personal experience, please listen. Yeah? So he's saying it's very personal advice to his students, and it's a precious thing, because we think that's normal, right? In America we think, oh, what's your experience? And what's your experience? What's your experience? This wasn't the case back then. The case back then is you stick to what's fact, and if the Buddha said this, then why not? But you state what was said, and then you make commentary on it. Yeah. So he won't make any quotes about Atisha or Sangha, Nagarjuna or anything like that. He'll pay homage to them, but then he'll begin to give you advices. And today I'm only going to cover the first step, yeah, which is, guess what? Finding your teacher, yeah, connecting with your teacher. But before we go there, I'll say he says homage to Lord Buddha, to Maitreya Manjushri, because they taught emptiness and compassion, bodhicitta, right? So the 2 wings. Nagarjuna and Asanga, who commentated on those. Lord Atisha, who wrote the first Lamrim. And then lamas of the lineage. So he goes down in some detail, and I was going to cover them with you, but I won't. He begins the text by going, actually I might. Is anybody a good reader? Nick, can you read out loud when I say so? It's just 5 pages, yeah?
Yeah.
Good. I figured if you get to read it, you get a sense of his text, And this reviews what we did last week, right? So the first thing he does is,
I bow down to Guru Manjushri, to his exalted body born from perfect complete goodness and millions of virtues, to his exalted speech which fulfills the hopes of infinite living beings, to his exalted mind which sees each and every knowable thing just as it is, to the prince of the Shakyas with my head I bow down.
so the first verse, he bows down to Lord Buddha himself, right? Body, speech and mind, we had a chat about that. Then he says,
I bow down to the undefeatable and to gentle voice, those supreme sons of our teacher who is without rival. Having taken on the load of all the victorious one's activity, they act by emanating themselves in countless paradises.
and this is Manjushri and Maitreya. Thank you.
To those jewels of our southern continent whose commented just as was meant upon the mother of the victors, which is so very difficult to fathom. To those who are known throughout all the three realms, to Nagarjuna and Asanga, at their feet I bow down.
Great. So Nagarjuna was the lord of the Nagas, the one that had the snakes before, teaching on which of the two wings is that?
Emptiness.
Emptiness, and Asanga.
Bodhicitta.
Thank you.
I bow down to the maker of light, the one who holds the treasury of instructions which contain without mistake the totality of all the important points, those of the path of profound view and those of widespread activity, which came down to him so perfectly through the lineage of the two great innovators.
Right, so who's this?
Asanga.
T-shirt. Yeah. And then?
I bow down with deep respect to all spiritual guides. Inspired by their love, they act with skillful means in order to make clear the supreme entry point for those fortunate ones who are traveling to freedom. That eye which can see all the myriad forms of the Buddha's supreme speech.
So so he's gone through the entire lineage, right, of the key lineage masters that taught these two great ideas of Buddhist thought that say, in order to reach enlightenment, in order to be free from suffering, you must develop these two wings. One is this thing called wisdom, this study of emptiness, this understanding of the true nature of existence, the thing that the world we experience sits upon, if you like. The blankness, emptiness of the reality we're experiencing. We can't experience the emptiness. We can experience the inflection upon that emptiness. Like on this screen, you see these images, but the screen is white. We're lost in the images. It's projected upon it. Understanding that is one side that takes much training and much practice. Habituated practice. Much like if you had a repetitive job. I had a repetitive job once. It was many times. I used to clean toilets for my mum and dad, who owned businesses while I was at school. And every time I went into a toilet, all I could look at was whether they cleaned it right. Right? So I'd walk in and I'm like, oh, they could have cleaned that room. I still do it to this day. And it's not something I'm choosing upon the emptiness of a toilet, and there's no pun, right? That all I could see is whether or not it's got these characteristics that I've habituated my mind to see. If you work in the fashion industry, you're forever looking at people's heels or shirts or whatever. If you're in the advertising industry, the same. So we habituate our minds to view the world in a specific way consciously most of the time, and then that becomes what we are in this world. But the world isn't about that toilet. Did not have anything about it being clean or dirty as the main thing of that toilet. The same of the way we experience the world. We experience the world through the lens of what we habituate. Understanding how that works can take a long time, but it's not difficult because it's truth. So a truth is findable, and if you could train yourself to see the unlimited potential locked behind every single experience you have of your physical world and of your mental world, of the outer world and of the inner world, then you understand it does not have to be the way you are experiencing it. And in that respect, you are free from being driven by it. When you see your life rolling in front of you, and you see your response to your life rolling in front of you, and you think it is the way it is because the way it is the way it is, you are at its mercy. Understanding the idea of emptiness, the wisdom part of these teachings, educates you, habituates you, forces you to see in every single experience, every sound, every taste, every touch, every single stimuli in it is pregnant with complete potential for the most magical experience or the most terrible experience. And the experience you are having is completely dependent on what your projector has loaded. You've loaded your projector through karma, understanding karma. So that training of emptiness creates your reality. Then the other side, the other key training Buddhist practice is this training of compassion. This training that says to you, for a second forget yourself as the center of the universe and recognize the fact that as you feel, as you experience this world, there are countless, beyond count, beings, 7 billion we call human, forget the numbers of animals and insects, and then if there's that, imagine that there might be some others, countless beings with a sense like you have of the world being just the way it is because it's their world. Yeah? And on this planet alone, if you have difficulty figuring out compassion, in this world alone, think as the world turns and that shadow part of the world comes to sunlight. Think as that morning breaks, every being getting up, waking up in the morning and thinking, I have to get to my job, and I have to find some food, and I have to take care of the kids, and I better keep my career, and I better pay the Porsche, and I want to buy a house, and investing 9 to 5, 9 to 8, day after day in the fields, in the offices, right throughout this planet, investing their precious humanity in getting things that they'll have to lose by the time they're dead, which is all of them. Yeah? So, and then being dissatisfied with the things when they get them, and to add insult to injury. Yeah? I got the Porsche, and now I want a better Porsche, or I want a thing, or the wife left, or, I mean, we just finished listening to a guy for an hour telling us about the things that he was dissatisfied about. If you have trouble having compassion, think of that as a reality on this planet, and you're just talking about the year 2014. Think of the cycles of the hopes of life when you're young and the harsh reality of having to figure out what to do with your stupid life. I better get that job, I better be an engineer. It's ridiculously sad, it really is. And we're swimming in it. And then you're swimming in this bizarreness. This is just one generation, right? Every 120 years, reset, a whole new set of creatures doing it. Everyone dead, a whole brand new set, recreating with computers versus with machinery versus with other things. You know, really searching and searching and searching and searching. In this sea of humanity. Animals the same. Better get something, avoid being killed, avoid being eaten. Swim away from that thing. In this sea of hope that when we get, we are dissatisfied with. If you look at that way, you have to have some compassion. You have to have some feeling of, if I could only help a little. And then the help from this lineage, which Tsongkhapa is saying, is like somebody threw you a life, what do you call it, a lifesaver?
Life vest.
Yeah, a life vest or something. and you can float a little bit. You can get perspective. You can see you're in this sea. Bodhicitta then is like, I've got a life vest. Am I swimming to shore? I can see the shore now. Or am I going to help some people come with me to the shore? Share the life vest with me. And that's a delicate balance of staying genuine with that. Until you develop that so much, you habituate that so much, that it becomes a natural, spontaneous impulse, that when you see a being, when you see a suffering being, when you see anybody that needs anything, your first impulse is to want to help them. And then you think, well, what can I help them with? And that's another story. So, I wanted to share with you, this is the lineage tree from Tsongkhapa. The last verse of this first 5 we learned refers to the lineage of your teachers, right? So imagine being lost in that sea and having found some hope that it doesn't have to be that way, because you understand the emptiness of that situation. That situation isn't the way it is because the way it is the way it is. The way it is the way it is because of karma, because it's empty of having that nature from its own side. Your own experience of your world isn't that way because the world is that way. We share that experience of the world because we share the same images loaded on our projectors as humans. Yeah? Understanding that lets you change the images on the projector. You can be loading a different set of images, so when the time comes, you're projecting a different reality rather than the one we're experiencing together. It is a possibility, it's a reality. That's the life vest. So I want to share with you what our specific lineage for this room is. And that starts with Tsongkhapa, Lama Tsongkhapa, and then a long lineage between him and Pabongka Rinpoche in the 1920s, and then Trijang Rinpoche, teacher of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and Khenso Rinpoche, Holy Khenso Rinpoche, to our current Angel Geshe Michael Roach, who happens to be many of our teachers here, and who was the first person really to translate these things from Tibetan into English and make these ideas understandable to the Western mind. This is our reality. This is the kindness of these beings. So it's about thinking of these beings as the ones that passed on the baton for you to have your own experience and your own realization about these things. No Buddha can help you really, separate to them teaching you. There's nobody that's going to come to your room tonight and say, hey, sit down with me and I'll fix your problems. You have to do it yourself. They can only help through teaching, through appearing to you in experiences and so on. That's why the focus and the emphasis on the teacher. Because without a holy teacher, without someone that ignited that passion for the skill that you're developing, in this case a skill to see the world through these 2 trainings, the emptiness and the bodhicitta training, without someone coming into my world and bursting my world apart through those 2 great ideas, I'd still be focused on my career, yeah, as the source of my happiness, which has made me. Anyway, story. So let's talk about the Lama, the guru, the teacher, and it happens to be Lam A, her, the first Lam, the first path. I thought that was funny. Okay. Obviously, I thought that was important. Yeah. It's Lam, a path. Anyway, we'll do Lam B later.
Is that where it really comes from? Is that where it really comes from?
No.
It's really just the animal.
It's just the animal, the Lama. So this is, I think, verse 11. So we've jumped through his for the first part. Do you mind having a read? This is what he says about, and that's all I want to focus on today. This passage.
Lam A. After having done this, see that the very foundation of an excellent start for all the good in this and your future lives is the holy spiritual guide who teaches you the path. Make efforts to rely on him properly in your thoughts and in your actions. Please him with the offering of carrying out his every instruction, and never give it up, not even at the cost of your life. I, the master meditator, lived my life this way. You who seek for freedom must try to do the same.
So this is his core of the instruction. The first part says, if you're ever going to have an experience of a world beyond this suffering world, then there is a creature made for you. And in Tibetan it's called Shenyen, which is your lama or your... Shenyen refers to your blood relative. It's more than your blood relative. It's you're so ingrained with that being, and you, according to karma and past lives, you would have been so much ingrained with that being for them to appear in your life. So, for example, in the meditation we did, we talked about some skill that you have, whether you're a good musician or a good linguist or whatever. Somebody taught you. We've all had teachers, right? Imagine life, that skill without that teacher. Imagine that your capacity without that person. I mean, for me, I can think of teacher upon teacher that ignited a fervor and a passion for certain aspects of my life. I had, in 8th grade, an English teacher who taught me how to memorize things, and she was magical to me, and everyone else thought she was a stupid old lady, and I agreed with them in secret, but privately she sat next to me one day and taught me how to memorize a poem and then explain the meaning of the poem, and it was nothing like what was written there. And really she began a whole life of finding meaning behind words and rhythms that I could never have thought existed were it not for her that day. And if you believe in causality, if you believe in cause and effect, like we say we do in the West, the Buddhists do as well. They just say it's not just the physical world that's caused, it's your mental and emotional world that is also caused. Something produced that magical connection between that lady and I. Something was the seed for that ripening that day that made so much sense and meaning to me at that moment, from those lips to these ears. But not to that kid and not to that kid. Something in my consciousness erupted upon listening to those words from that lady, but not to that kid and not to that kid. So Buddhists say that's your internal ripening. That causation is your mind flowering into something that was caused. That was caused by something similar and before. Some giving of some information, some sharing of insight to another with beautiful intent. Then we get to karma. So it's pretty clear and pretty non-negotiable for Tsongkhapa, who says, if you want to enter the path to freedom, and I'm supposed to be the expert meditator. He was the most prolific writer of Tibetan Buddhism. The teacher is your relationship to the teacher, the way you engage with your teacher, finding a teacher, understanding a teacher is the essence, is the core. Without that, you don't have access to the world of enlightenment, he says. And so Shenyen, a blood relative, is really your heart teacher, the being that ignites, that you relax into in such a way that it opens that roadway to freedom. Yeah. I want to cover the traditional 10 qualities of a teacher, and then I want to talk about how it should feel. So I'll give you the list and then how it should feel. Okay. So this list comes ornament of the sutras. Anyone remember or know where that comes from? Who wrote that? Might be on your homework. I've done this list before, so I'll go quick. The first one is for somebody to be a qualified teacher for you, right? Because it's a very personal relationship that you entrust another being with your intellectual real estate, with your emotional real estate. And he says, Tsongkhapa says, in this and all your future lives. So it's not a game that you're playing for this life only. It's a game you're playing for the entirety of your future. The way you engage to those beings that are your teachers, and one of them will stand out as the thing, is the beginning of the road. So if you haven't got a heart teacher, or you're close to a heart teacher, or you're flirting with a heart teacher, or you've had them and you've gotten rid of them, you think about what it means for you to have a teacher. The way you engage with them dictates this and all your future lives. Yeah.
But what if your heart teacher's not a scriptural teacher? So
Yeah.
in some ways,
Yeah.
you're talking about your heart teacher showing you the steps on the path, but it may be someone who doesn't use the same.
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. And I think in the 90s when Geshe Michael was teaching this, someone asked a similar question. They asked, does a heart teacher need to be a Tibetan monk with robes, And I think it was shocking for me to hear Geshe Michael says, just because someone's got red clothes doesn't make them a teacher. In fact, there's a bunch of people with red robes on who are just regular people like you and I, troubled and looking for meaning. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very dangerously and magnificently potential relationship. And he said, no, you know when you meet your heart teacher because your heart bursts open. And it's not like you're forcing yourself to listen to their advices in a way that they have meaning for you. It's that their advices have meaning for you.
I guess I get confused with the list because the list has so much to do with knowing.
Yeah, let's talk about it as we go through the list. So let's go control, for example. From the Tibetan Buddhist point of view, if you're studying in a monastery and living in that context, control means attained. It means the essence of the course we're teaching now. It's Vinayad, it's Dulwad, right? Someone who's Dulwad. Someone who has had the 3 sets of vows or has practiced or is living an ethical life. So in a non-Tibetan Buddhist sense, you're looking at this person and you see a code of ethics alive in them. It's the first of the 3 trainings, right? The training on Vinaya. So, we talk about Pratimoksha vows only in the Vinaya course, but there are 2 other sets of vows, right? The first group, which there are 8 of, are the Pratimoksha vows, right? Which we covered in this course. The next set of vows it's one level up, one flavor up, it's another octave. Bodhisattva vows, yeah? So it's the Pratimoksha vows are all the sets of vows, all the sets of promises that you are acting with your mind to try and generate a result, right? At the very minimum, you're not killing things, you're not stealing other people's partners, on the contrary, you're taking care of life, you're respecting other people's property and relationships and so on, right? You're not lying, you're telling truth, you're living with some kind of ethics, pratimoksha. And you can look at a person who's controlling their words and their actions, pratimokshas, you can tell. And so that's an ethical way of living. You're observing this person that is appearing to you as some kind of teacher, right? You're getting this kind of from them, and you look at them and morally, and I don't mean independently morally, I mean you see them as a moral being, you see them as a perfect being. Yeah. And that's one level. Another level is bodhicitta, bodhisattva vows, the vows that lead you to taking care of others. And the behavior of that it's a few levels up, if you like, from the pratimoksha vow. Some of the behavior that you would see from a being that is practicing bodhisattva activity might not look like the pratimoksha activity. It's doing things that would benefit a greater number of beings. It's actively doing things not so much for reclusing and self, but more for others. And so they have that morality, but it's spread out that way. And then to add to that, a different speed, if you like, because they relate to speed. It's like a slow moving wagon might be pratimoksha activity, you'll get some results. A medium moving car or train might be your bodhisattva vows, they'll force you to have experiences faster than a pratimoksha set of vows, although they build on each other. And then the last set of vows are? Tantric vows, which are secret, so you can't tell whether or not these people are keeping their vows, and that's a problem for most of us. But it's It's gotta be something, some fire in you that ignites a realization that these beings, there's something going on, and they're not hurting lots of people, and they're not hurting anyone actually. They're on the contrary, they're taking care of more and more and more beings, and there's something uniquely freeing about being around them. You have an experience of morality around them. They don't have to be a monk or a nun or a guru or anything. It can be your best friend from childhood that you forgot all about, and all of a sudden you're having experiences of them as always having taught you something. And actually, since some of you, if not most of you, have been in these courses for a while, tell me why that could be the case. Why could you be sitting all of a sudden, remember your childhood friends, see them as an enlightened teacher, and begin to have an experience of them as the Lama? What would cause that?
You've been planting the seeds to experience them later on.
Yeah. Are they a teacher from their own side?
No.
Are they perfected on their own side?
No.
No? Now, are you pretending while you're really experiencing them? You're really experiencing them, but you have but you have an understanding because you've studied wisdom of where they come from, if you have, right? If not, if you're a lucky bastard like me who lived a pretty selfish life the first half of his life, and then bumps into a maverick monk who speaks English, has long hair, and hates the dude on first seeing him, but is unable to remove himself from the link to that creature, and then every word he says destroys sections of my self-existent grasping world and shows me a vision beyond compare. If you're a lucky bastard like me, then where did I get those seeds? I didn't have the wisdom to know that that Lama wasn't coming from me. Where did those things come from, according to this philosophy? Hello?
From you.
Thank you. From me, from the past. Like, Hector didn't do that on purpose. Yeah? And whenever you're pitched into an experience of another being that is, I don't know, for me it was supernatural, it was uneasy and it was hard, but I couldn't stay away. I couldn't stay away from that creature. Every word was bursting whole sections of my normal way of looking at the world, and I couldn't deny it. And so the words from this being and the way I was witnessing them at least had this quality. They had some morality. They were a monk. Yeah. The second, so I'm going slow. The second of the 10 qualities of a prospective teacher, right, is peaceful or at peace. I've taught it before. And this is their training on concentration. So their ability to concentrate deeply. It's their ability to meditate, they understand those teachings, and they practice, and you can know they're practicing, and they engage in those practices. And if you understand that the world that we are experiencing is an image projected, like the metaphor I was using, then concentration helps you see through the image, that it's not from its own side the way it's appearing. And so perfect concentration prevents you from being unethical when the situation seemingly warrants. So if someone's yelling at you, or and you realize that you've loaded the projector, if you have wisdom, if you see that this is a projection of something else you've got in your projector from before, from actions you did before, then the last thing you want to do is yell back and create more of that projection. Concentration helps you stay focused enough in a real life situation when the boss is yelling at you, when people have stolen from you, when you've been wronged. You still act, but you act with a state of mind that uses the training on concentration and wisdom, which is the next training. They call them completely peaceful or high peace. They have an intellectual understanding of emptiness. They possess that training. They have a broad and deep understanding of emptiness. So that's the first three qualities. They relate to the three trainings, right, that we learned before. So this is a way to check whether or not the person you are going to engage with as a teacher-student relationship is qualified for you. Yeah. Now I know my teacher, other people don't see him as a teacher. I know the Dalai Lama, people think he's the devil in China. You know, like I know for Gandhi was a pain in the ass for the British. I mean, there is no self-existent Gandhi. There's no self-existent Dalai Lama. There's no self-existent teacher. The training teaches you to have your own experience of this world. And I think you and I were talking about what a bizarre world we live in, right? Because we live in a culture that says, I'm an individual. I think this is what we're talking. I'm an individual. I want it my own way. I'm doing things my own way. But then you are boxed into being an individual within this frame. You know, you can only be an individual if you have a pink iPhone, not a green iPhone. I've got my pink iPhone. I'm such an individual. Don't tell me what to do. Please tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. Have a pink iPhone. Okay, I'm an individual. No one tells me what to do. You see what I mean? Like we're living in this crazy, bizarre world where we want to be so unique, but then here come these teachings that say you are in complete and utter responsibility for your world. You're an individual. Your own experience of your teacher is your karma, your production, your projector. You load the images through your words and your actions and your thoughts. But I don't know what to do. Tell me which to load. Which is it, a pink iPhone I load, or is it? Do you see? We live in this dilemma. You have complete freedom to create your own world. You're an individual. But I don't know what to do. We're so trained to not know what to do. It's a problem. It's a problem. Because when you're given that, I mean, unless I'm crazy, but I know that I feel this horrible, I don't know what to do next. When I engage with these ideas at the beginning. Someone please tell me what to do. Don't tell me what to do. I'm an individual. It's bizarre. At some point, you bite the bullet and you say, you know, nobody has a clue. Your boss has no clue what's going to make profit. You've got no clue whether you're going to have a great day today. This is where the ground goes from under you, and this is like crazy to deal with. Our brains are not designed to do this. Not only that, our brains are lazy. We don't want to deal with it. It's too much to compute. But it is computable. It is coarse. Therefore, you could figure out what to do, but you need to apply yourself. This is hard. This is hard. So yeah, the path is there, but it's not easy. Give me an iPhone. That'll be easy. Okay, I'm 60. I'm 70. I'm dead. Serious. That's what we do. You know, we're like ostriches with heads in the sand. And we've gotten accustomed to it because everyone else is on the phone, on the train. Everyone else is not being the individual. This is a rare, rare thing. Good news, there's freedom. Bad news, you're responsible for it. Actually, it's good news. Bad news because we're not used to it. We don't know. So then Buddha said, here's some advices, 50 years. Hey, do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. But at some point, who decides? Like when you're faced with an ethical dilemma, who decides? And where do you decide from? You know, there are some practices in Buddhist and other lineages that say if you do certain meditations upon death, you will be enlightened. I don't think you're going to have the ability to frame thoughts properly at that moment. You're only ever going to do your impulses. And if you haven't habituated your impulses at that point, it's worse than a lottery. So you're healthy, you're capable, but you have to think more than you're thinking, you have to feel more than you're thinking, and you've got to decide for yourself. And how do you do it? Well, there's some stuff you can study. Training on ethics, training on concentration, training on wisdom. Yeah? How do you find that? Find a teacher that can teach you. Yeah? Like I said, I'm not your teacher. I'm here passing down a download. A teacher is a very special relationship. You know when you have it. So what Tsongkhapa is saying in this verse, if you haven't found it, if you're in the middle of the ocean, you better find someone that at least has a lifesaver, a floating device. Ask them how to float. Job number 1 to get enlightened. I don't know what to do. Find someone that knows what to do. Yeah? Sorry. Did I rant?
Perfect.
No.
Okay. No more ranting, Hector. Okay. Look, I'll talk about it later, but I want to make this, because Emily, I like your question. You know, like we have the self-existent thing that says, oh, is the monk the right thing? That doesn't mean anything. It's got to give you fire. It's got to give you fusion. You know what? The atom has potential for unlimited power or unlimited destruction. Your engagement with a holy teacher is like that. If you make fusion work, it's an upward spiral that frees you through all the other lumps, all the other paths. If you screw it up, atomic results for you and for them. And the good news about Buddhism is that you don't stop. You go on for eons. So you don't just screw up one life, or you don't just free up one life, right? And all these, we can discuss in classes. That I'm not just saying these things to freak you out. I'm not just saying these things to just repeat what other people have said. I'm saying these things because I've spent 17 years looking at all the other alternatives, and for me, these make sense. And I've got enough basis and foundation to feel that they make sense. And I share with you when I have conflict about some of them, like some other classes. But think about it. Language. Who taught you language? Imagine that person and those people never taught you language, and then you're dumped into this world, and all you can hear is no language. It's that. It's exactly that. So it's like, if things are caused, then you can continue to cause your teacher if you've had an experience of meeting them. If not, you can cause them. You can produce them. The fourth quality, I'll go through them quicker, exceeding qualities. This just means find someone that has more capacity than of those things you're seeking that you don't have. So the teacher better have knowledge about having walked parts of the path that you haven't yet gotten to. It just means that. Yeah. The fifth one is having effort. You see them dedicating their life towards the two goals. One, to get free themselves, and one, to free others. Yeah? So you see that their lives, the energy that they spent in their life is mostly dedicated on this ideal of, look, this world is fine and dandy, and there's many lovely buildings and great cars and beautiful lovely shapes and nice flowers and beautiful iPhones, beautiful eyelids, lovely arms, good buttocks, excellent sleeping places. Like, there's all these nice things about the world, and you can get lost in any or all of them. There's good money, there's good relationships, there's all sorts of pleasures of the senses, which then rot or turn, or you get dissatisfied and you want more. That is the world. You can get lost in them, and you can have beautiful sensations, and they are caused. What this is saying is that you see this creature which begins to engage with you as teacher-student relationship, as somebody devoting their energy and their life to something that goes beyond that. That understands that the being inside human being is this thing that continues, is this thing that has potential to be perfected, to be free from the cycles of things rotting and so on. And so you see this being as dedicating their efforts to that. And that's number 5. Rich in scripture. They have knowledge of the Tripitakas, the 3 baskets. Do you remember what they are? They're not the 3 trainings, but they're close. Tripitaka. Come on, 3 baskets. It's just a way of grouping the entirety of the Buddha's teaching. There's a whole bunch of trainings that the Buddha gave on Vinaya, on Duwa, yeah? Living an ethical way. For all of us who go, but I don't know what to do. And he says, okay, start with don't kill things that have life, because they want to live too. In fact, why don't you develop the impulse to protect life? Now, rule number 1, if you don't figure it out for yourself, cause and effect, if you can't shape your mind around it, why don't you start with this, the training on morality, Duwa. Don't kill things. Respect other people. Respect other beings. Respect other relationships. Yeah? No killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying, etc. Yeah, devices to talk, etc., etc. Right? We covered them. So if you want some, well, here they are, all the trainings on bad morality. Yeah? And then the next one is the Abhidharma basket, or the trainings on concentration and all the other advices. And the last one is the training on wisdom, emptiness, prajna paramitas. Yeah?
Wait, what was the second one?
Abhidharmas, they say. When they say the 3 baskets, you have the Vinaya, the Abhidharma, and
What is the Abhidharma?
Abhidharma Kosha is the one that has all the sutras, all the other advices. So you can say concentration, if you want to summarize it. Yeah? All
Like
the stuff on how to
meditation?
meditate. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last one is wisdom.
Here we go. Yeah, wisdom. 7. Has deep realization of suchness. And here it refers to having a direct experience of that thing we call wisdom, emptiness. So if you're fortunate enough, check this out, okay? We are proposing, I am putting out there as a theory, according to 2,500 years of this lineage, I'm proposing to you that the world is not what it is, that it is a projection upon emptiness, upon a blank screen, that looks like shapes and colors. And they are shapes and colors, but they're illusionary, yeah? Illusory, thank you. But they are there. It's not that they're not there. They are produced by the projector of your mind, by something similar in your consciousness. Your world is nothing but a reflection of you, in essence. That's where that comes from. Imagine truly experiencing a person, bumping into a person on this planet that you believe, have evidence for, and understanding that they have had a direct experience of a reality that underpins this experience, that they've seen beyond the projector, that they are in touch with the glowing brightness of the blank screen, and that they can describe the journey to the white screen with precision beyond your capacity. Imagine that you have the conception in your mind, right, to perceive that there is a being like that. That itself, because it's so anti this world, requires so much karmic energy, if you like. It uses up so much virtue, because it's a goodness, it's a brilliance, it's a magnificence to experience that there is a teaching or a teacher or a being or a set of beings who have access to a realm beyond the suffering realm. To actually have the conception of that is a virtue beyond description, because it frees you from being stuck in samsaric existence that perpetuates you into cycles of suffering. To even have the conception that that exists as a thing, if everything is caused, was produced by something equally as all-encompassing and magnificent. Do you see what I'm trying to share with you? So then, number 7 is saying, if they don't have that, then at least they have an intellectual understanding, or a deep intellectual understanding. Yes, sorry, you were saying.
I guess that's the answer. I was going to ask, does that mean that I have to have the perception that they've seen it directly?
Yeah, and if not, at least, see, if there isn't somebody with a perfect lifesaver for you, this is the perfect list, right?
Yes.
Then any floating device will do until you cause a perfect lifesaver. How's that?
So for this number, I could just have the perception that they're extremely close.
Yeah.
It's not that I have the perception that they've actually succeeded.
Correct.
So what does it mean, like, great emptiness realization? Is that from the text, or what does that mean versus having a direct realization?
It just means a direct. But they use great, and I'm guessing it's because to make that division of what you're trying to figure out. Did they have a direct? Now, will you ever know that somebody else had a direct perception of emptiness?
Not necessarily.
Could you ever know?
Yes.
When?
When I see it.
Right. So until you know, you don't know, right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Good thinking though around it. Yeah.
Okay.
Master instruction, and here it means they teach in accordance to your needs. Yeah. So if there are multiple beings at different levels, then they're able to bring somebody here and keep that one on hold and keep going. But it sounds like spiritual advice is directed to you if you're a student of theirs. Yeah. So whenever you need it, they appear with the right answers, whether it's in live or whether it's in memory, or they're teaching, right? So it means two things. It's to the spiritual capacity of the student, they're bringing them along. You perceive that they're bringing you along to your spiritual capacity, and then you might see a friend of yours who's studying with them also, and you say, wow, he's really advancing that person because they're that close with the meditation teaching or whatever it is, and also at their pace. Yeah, so not too fast, not too slow. Image of love, meaning that the motivation is there was a list of 4 in here, and the fourth answer was the fourth on the list was that their motivation is for your sake as the student, and not for fame, and not for fortune, and not for material gain. Yeah. So there were the 4 things. So image of love means you're just witnessing this person, and I see Geshe Michael Roach, for example, traveling Asia, traveling South America, and so on, and I see him in the breaks. Like, he doesn't have a rest before the breaks, after the breaks, during the teaching, and I think it's the breaks that I see this in him so much more. He'll sit, and with each person he'll reset, and he'll just listen to them. And he won't give them the same answer. He'll just say an answer that I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even hear what the question was, and he like just pinned it down to them. All he wants, my experience of him, right, lucky me, is that he wants that person to realize some happiness for themselves, completely at whatever level they're at. And it's beautiful to see that. Every time I see that, I think, that's a love beyond the selfish love, beyond the love that's possessive love, beyond those loves. And number 10, overcome all distaste, which just means you see them teaching the same thing over and over and over. They don't get tired of teaching these things over and over and over, just until it's necessary or connected or understood. Yeah? So this is the flavor of what, if you had a connection with a being in your world, you could put them through their paces, right? But the advice is, once you know, don't hesitate. I don't mean be radical and crazy and jumpy in and, oh my Lama, that's stupid. Yeah? I'm saying you have to have this, but then you're in control of your experience. But if your experience is frightening, dive. According to Tsongkhapa, everything is dependent on this Lam. Lam 1, Lam A. So Lama. So what I was gonna say, it's like, there it is, fusion. It has the potential for an upward spiral that's of atomic power, but it also, if you do it with ignorance, if you see them not truly with these things, and you're still going to go through the motions because you want your girlfriends to see how nice you are as a good Buddhist and whatever, then it's got the potential for atomic disastrous results. It's got the potential for both. And it doesn't come from them, and it doesn't come from you. Your karma to see a being in this way was produced by you. They are empty. You have the capacity to see them in this light. They are empty. They have the capacity to see themselves as being able to share with you in this light. For them, it's an equally blissful karma to be able to say. Imagine yourself being able to say a word that sparks a domino effect throughout a life of goodness, like that teacher did for me in 8th grade. If she could only see that at 47, I still think of her, that every time I memorize or I read words, I think of her. If she could see that, what a blissful, beautiful thing it would be for her, that she did one single moment of kindness that has changed decades of my life. So then, tendril is this connection you have with them. You got the capacity to keep them because you caused it, which means you have to keep causing it. There is no self-existence in here. It was produced by you. Any blissful moment you've had with any teaching or teacher, you own that. It's yours. But not in a selfish, oh, I'm so good, look at me, because that's how you burn it. It's realizing the emptiness of it. The wisdom is seeing that in it. And then planting the causes for maintaining it. So what that means practically is I see a holy teacher and I understand that they come from me, and I understand that they can see the hell they want to see, but I'm seeing a perfected creature. Yet, even if it's for a millisecond, I dedicate that, I grow that, I give that away, and then the normal habituated mind begins to make everything normal, right? I don't like her wart after week 2, oh, she smells after week 6, like it starts like this. My job is to keep growing, keep fertilizing that thing, projecting. And nirvana is the same. Nirvana is projecting the emptiness of your mind, is having a mind that sees itself suffering versus seeing a mind that continuously removes affliction after affliction after affliction until you perceive yourself having a mind that perceives itself being free from afflictions. The mind is also empty. And in that mind, the Lama then becomes... See, the Lama is the game. Number one, the relationship to a teacher is the game. And as you move from Sutra path to Tantric teachings, it becomes a higher stakes game till that fusion is achieved, and then you have perpetual energy. I think that's... I'll talk quickly about 8 lectures when we come back, have a 10-minute break, and then I've got to go 3 more topics that Tsongkhapa covers in these things, which are essential